Hey everyone, Once Bitten here. So it's a Friday night. I'm done with the work week. My kids are coming home for holiday vacation here in a couple hours, and I have just a little bit of time that I normally don't have. And I thought I'd put together one of my philosophical ramblings, which all that means is it's a type of video where I talk with having no real point. I'm just going to talk for a little bit, but I want to talk. I thought I'd talk about some things that have just kind of been on my mind lately. I've been thinking about lately. And really, it has to do with time and attention. Obviously, all of us have the exact same amount of time available to us, but how we allocate that time goes a long way towards how we experience life and what we experience in life. And attention is something that I am intrigued about. There's only so many things we can pay attention to. And anyway, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about what consumes my time and attention. And another way of saying that is, why do we do what we do? Why do I do what I do as a war gamer, as a YouTube content provider? You could call this what this hobby means to me, or myself as a case study of a gamer YouTube personality. So I'm going to spend a fair chunk of time talking about just some real life stuff as a background for relevant comments later about the hobby. So I want to talk about things that occupy most of my time and attention on a daily basis. So in doing that, obviously I'm going to be talking a lot about myself in this video. So if that seems narcissistic to you, if that bores you, oh my gosh, stop it now. Just stop the video because that's going to be a lot of the topic tonight. So when I think about it, it occurs to me that really there are four main things, four main types of activities, I guess, that consume by far the majority of my waking hours and of my attention. So probably the biggest one of that is, well, probably the biggest time-wise is work. But I'm going to start with what I hope is my most important, and that'd be my family. Yeah, so I've been married for 23 years now, and as probably most all of you know, marriage is a lot of work. I mean, mainly just because you don't always feel starry-eyed in love. You have disagreements, financial challenges, health problems. Like I said, as you've probably experienced, life isn't always or often exciting and thrilling. A lot of it's filled with the usual stuff. For me, my usual is pretty darn good. For my wife and I, our really only real big challenge was about 12, 13 years ago, which coincided with the starting of my first YouTube channel. I was going to say coincidentally, but it may not be a coincidence. I mean, for whatever reason, when I was in my early 30s, I experienced just an almost complete change in my worldview and my personality, and just a host of aspects of myself and my life. I lost my religion. I changed my political views. I decided I no longer wanted to own my own business, and this is after several years of risking everything we had and sacrificing a lot, and the business was going well, and I just decided I didn't want it anymore. So in the midst of all that, we had a real tough year as a couple, and it's probably the only time in our marriage when we both wondered if we were actually going to make it as a couple. So like I said, probably not coincidentally, that's also when I got back into the hobby and started my first YouTube channel. I've noticed in my work life, I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I'm a social science researcher, and I study major life changes. And I've noticed in my research that when people are going through major life changes, a lot of times they find themselves drawn to creative endeavors. And I find it interesting. I never would have thought about this at the time, but what at the time was Warhammer Fantasy became my creative outlet. Not that I had any skill whatsoever, but I don't think you need skill to exercise creativity. So anyway, obviously our marriage survived, and as cliche as it sounds, we became closer because of it. We're best friends, and we're secure enough together that we have the freedom to do our own independent things. I'm amazed a lot of times when there are other guys, I hear them talking like, oh, I can't do that. My wife doesn't want me to. And I'm just like, I just can't fathom that. My wife has really serious health problems. When she was 14, she developed really serious scoliosis. I mean, to the extent that I think it would have killed her if she had lived 100 years ago. certainly would have been like Quasimodo. Being a child who, as a teenager when this happened in the 80s, they cut her back open and they fused her from neck to butt. I mean, she literally has 2 vertebrae at the top and 2 vertebrae at the bottom, and the rest is all fused together. And after a lifetime of wear and tear on that back, when her back hurts, it always hurts. But when the pain really flares, it'll take off her feet for days at a time. Earlier this year, there were several months in a row when I would come home from work and she'd be laying on the floor in tears, having been there for hours, just frustrated. Like, is this my life now? I can't move. I can't do anything. And of course, when that happens, as I think, as any of us would do, just everything stops. I mean, whatever I had on the calendar gets dropped, and I massage her back, or I make dinner, or I pick the kids up, or I vacuum the house, or whatever needs to be done that she hoped to get done and wasn't able to, or whatever. At night, we like to hang out together. I mean, our thing is we like to sit down and watch like 2 or 3 episodes of some show, whatever we're watching on Netflix. Watch 2 or 3 episodes, maybe have a drink together, and just chill out. And I love that. It's really the highlight of my day. Every day I look forward to it. I mean, she's my best friend, and we really, really enjoy just kind of being together. So we have 3 kids. The oldest is a senior in college. The middle child is a freshman in college, and my youngest is a sophomore in high school. And although I might be biased, these are some of the most wonderful, impressive people I've ever known. I mean, they're just fantastic. They're certainly one of the sources of my greatest feelings of love, but they're also the source of my greatest fears. I mean, there are times when, you can't keep kids from taking chances, and some are good chances, and they just need it as part of growing up. And sometimes it's stupid chances that could just be disastrous. And there's nothing you can do except just grit your teeth through it and hope everything comes out for the best. I can tell you, if I can brag, one stories. I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but I run a lot. And my youngest daughter, growing up, we had her in dance as a kid, but she never really enjoyed physical stuff. I mean, she's a reader, she's a writer. She has her own YouTube channel. It's so cute. She does book reviews on YouTube, and she has a blog and stuff like that. She wants to be a writer when she grows up, and all that's very, very cool. But with all my kids, I always hope that they have different outlets in life. One outlet that I hope they have is a physical outlet, So because her older siblings were into running and got into cross country in high school and stuff like that, she wanted to start running. And it was so funny, because when she started doing it, I was thinking, this is not going to end well. I mean, she does not like running. I don't know what a runner's built like. But she's I don't know. She never struck me as being a runner. And she's a lot like me in a lot of ways. And so she decides that, she starts running. She ran for a year. She wasn't even in high school at the time. She was in 8th grade. And then she's like, well, I want to do a half marathon. So I trained with her, for about 6 or 7 months. And together we ran a half marathon. Her goal was to break 2 hours, and she got literally 1:59:59. And really sparked in her a love of running, which I never would have suspected. And on the cross-country team, we have a pretty good team. The boys and girls are always, lately the last few years are top 10, top 15 in state all the time. And she's, as a freshman, was varsity, and now, like, running winter track, she set the school record in a couple events. I mean, she's just really impressive. Just a lot of effort. I'm not sure how much natural ability. I mean, there's some certainly, but just a lot of stick-to-itness. So my point in saying all this is, it takes a lot of time and attention to be a good husband and dad. And if we're talking about my time, my waking hours, and my attention, and what I'm thinking about, a very significant chunk of it is thinking about my wife and my kids and doing stuff with them. I mean, this week, I got off work early and went to a winter track meet. Winter track is just, when it's not held indoors, it's just stupid. It's freezing outside. And so I stood out on the cold bleachers for 3 hours Wednesday and Thursday to watch my daughter. And it's great. It's good fun. It's just, it's time. It's time consuming. Yeah, so moving on. For work, if you follow my channel, you probably know this. I'm a professor at a Research 1 university. And so I say Research 1 because what that means is the majority of my time is actually not teaching. It's being a researcher. Anymore, I tend to teach maybe 1 or 2 classes a year. Most of my time is spent either doing administrative stuff or doing research stuff. And so it's a great job for me. It's probably the perfect job for somebody like me, but it's a high pressure job. It's not just about doing day-to-day minutia. We're expected to make a big name for ourselves in our respective fields. That might mean big research projects, big grants, highly cited publications, and I like that. It's not about clocking in hours. It's about, at the end of the day, can you get the job done? And the job expects a lot. And I've become somewhat fairly well known in my little niche of the world. And I research major life changes. So I've studied the psychosocial transition of breast cancer survivorship, specifically looking at survivors that say that although it was a difficult experience, their life is better because they had cancer, which is not normal necessarily. But I've also studied military veterans transitioning back to post-military life. And now I study student success in community colleges, and I study, I don't know if I study, I work with the government on terrorist stuff that I can't talk too much about. I don't mean it to sound like that, but I just can't talk that much about it. So as an example, my first big project was with breast cancer survivors. And again, I was looking at, how did they change their cancer survivorship for these women that said that it ended up being a positive thing in their life, despite its difficulty. What did that change process look like? Stuff like that. And of course, there's no one profile for how people change or whether they change and what ways they change and all that kind of stuff. But I did notice a recurring theme that's really influenced how I think about things in life. And that is that in almost every case that I studied, the person said that the specific challenge for them, because there wasn't one challenge that really, really disturbed them. I mean, sometimes for some women, it might have been the fear of death. And other ones, it was getting a mastectomy. And how is this going to affect me as a woman if I don't have breasts anymore? For some of them, it was losing their hair. For some of them, it was how people treated them. They didn't feel like they were normal anymore. And people looked at them as a sick person, and they just really hated that. But not just hated it, like it really affected them deeply. So the specific concerns people had were all over the place. But one thing I noticed was that when you talk to them about what made it really difficult for them and how did they work through it, and a lot of times the way they worked through it was they didn't want to work through it. They would have not gone through that specific challenge if there's any way possible to avoid it. And the only way they worked through it was just to do whatever they could, just to adapt and just to survive. Physically, emotionally, whatever. And then if you look later on with like, how did life change for you? How are you different now than you were then? It doesn't matter if you go off the topic of what was so tough for them. They will come back and say, my life is different now because, and you can see a direct link between what was so difficult for them, how they reacted to it, and how their life is better now because of it. And I try to remind myself of that. I mean, we can't always be making major life changes. It's kind of traumatic in some ways. It's very dramatic, certainly. But a lot of times what we want for ourselves and what ends up being best for us are very, very different things. Whether it's making us a better person or improving our long-term quality of life, sometimes it's only because we're forced out of our comfort zone that anything like that happens. And I try to keep that in mind. So in my work, I do a fair amount of presentations about my research at academic conferences, as a paid speaker, at whatever. I do a lot of writing. I do a lot of interviewing people and I do a little bit of data analysis and stuff like that. So anyway, my job is fascinating. It takes a lot of time and attention. It really does. And I get consumed by it. I mean, it's my passion. I just absolutely love it. When I think about work, wargaming goes away. I don't think about wargaming. I don't think about my other hobbies. I'm totally and utterly just consumed by that. And sometimes I'll be driving home after work and I'll remember like, oh yeah, there's other things and other things. I mean, everything else goes away, which is probably a good sign that I have the right kind of job. All right, time and attention. So there's family, there's work. Third thing was, for lack of a better term, I'll just say fitness. Over the years, I've done different things on and off, but I think it's important to have a strong social part of life, a strong mental part of life. I think it's important to have a strong, physical part of life, something you do physically. For the last several years, for me, it's been running. As with most everything else, I can't just run a few times a week and, maintain basic fitness. It always has to go like to the nth degree. So I got into running about 5 or 6 years ago because my two older kids had joined the cross country teams. So they're at the schools, middle school and high school they were at the time. And I remember, them taking me on a 4-mile run, and I thought I was going to die. Like, we probably just ran it too fast, but it seemed so long. It was so hard. It was just awful. But anyway, I started running just because they were running, and we ended up actually not running much together. But I wanted to be able to relate to them and have something to talk about. So, one of the things on my bucket list was to run a marathon. So I said, now's the time. So I set a goal. I signed up for a marathon a year away, and I just trained and ran a marathon. And I noticed in doing that it was actually a lot more mental than physical. The physical part was just, every couple of weeks run a little bit further than you've gone before. But a lot of times, almost every time when I ran a farther distance than I'd ever run before, it was so difficult. And I'd go out the next time, and that same distance wouldn't be hard at all. And even if it was just a mile further, going from 6 miles to 7 miles, I remember it was a big deal. Going from 9 miles to 10 miles, running 10 miles for the first time was the hardest darn thing. When I finished, I did the Rocky dance. If you ever watched Rocky, where he's dancing at the top of the stairs, hands in the air. I was just really proud of myself running 10 miles. But it was all mental, because then 2 weeks later, I'd run 10 miles. It wasn't a big deal at all. So anyway, after the marathon, I was running for a little bit, but I wasn't really motivated because I needed a goal. So I was like, you know what? I want to sign up for a 24-hour race and see how far I could run in 24 hours. So do an ultra marathon. Ultra is just anything longer than a marathon. So I trained for 9 months for it, and my goal was to run at least 75 miles. I couldn't wrap my brain around that. I hadn't run anything further than a marathon, and this is basically 3 marathons. And I was really hoping for 100 miles, but I could barely wrap my mind around 75, much less 100. So I did the same thing. I went to the internet and looked for how do you train for an ultra, but a lot of times it's just you just need to run farther than you have before. In a way that you don't abuse your body too much. Your body can adapt and not just get injured. So I ended up doing really well. There was 350 people in this 24-hour race. I finished 9th place. I ran just under 101 miles in 24 hours of almost constant rain. It's the longest damn night of my life. But training for stuff like this takes a lot of time. It really does. And it's funny because I don't spend a lot of attention on it. Like, there's a lot of people I run with it. Man, they're on the internet. They're researching foods to eat and how do you get proper hydration and what are your running strategies. And I'm like, I don't know. I just go run. Not because I'm opposed to it. There's only so many hours in the day. There's only so much capacity I have. And the time and attention I have, I just don't study it. I just kind of go do it. But when I get close to an ultramarathon, I might do back-to-back runs of 10 miles on a Thursday night, 15 miles on a Friday night, and then maybe 20 miles on a Saturday. Or some might go out and run 30 or 40 miles on a Saturday. And that just takes a long time. It might take me 8 hours, 10 hours to run that. So, and on top of that, I have to watch what I eat and how much water I drink, and not just during the runs, but all the time. I forgot once, and I had to quit a training run because I started pissing blood. It was, it's so. And my current focus is trying to run shorter distances faster. I was going to go for 200 miles, and my wife stopped me. She's like, I really hurt myself doing the 100 miles. I'm probably permanently injured from it, maybe. I don't know, but it takes a lot of time. Anymore, I just have to get up earlier and early. I get up at 4:30 or 5 in the mornings, just so I have time to make sure I get a workout in. On top of that, because at least one of my kids have been on the cross-country team for over 5 years now, ever since we moved here, I do a lot of running with the cross-country team, especially during the summers when they're just kind of doing long runs. And I don't know if I'm famous locally. The running community locally knows who I am just because I'm one of a small handful of people who run crazy distances. So now it's funny because now they've asked me if I'd be willing to volunteer as an assistant coach, especially working with the newer runners, the slower runners, to help them learn how to love running and to help them overcome the mental game of of becoming a runner, because you just have to think about it differently. And I really want to. I don't know if I can. I really want to. I find it so rewarding, and I know it has been working with my kids. So after all that, and that is all a preamble to my life as a wargamer. So my fourth area of time and attention is wargaming. And of course, me being me, I can't just, assemble some models, paint them, and play an occasional game. I have to take it to the nth degree. So I'm never happy with my painting. And I'm not a great painter, but I've become a much, much better painter over the years, over the last decade, amazingly so, in my mind. I can't just go to tournaments, but I get, I have standards that I have to place really high in tournaments. And if I don't place high in tournaments, I'm really hard on myself. I can't just play, but I have to convert all these hobby activities into a YouTube channel, and all the work that's involved with that. So I can't just play a game, but make battle reports and stuff. And then ever since the Ninth Age, I've tried with frequent unsuccess to be active as an army book creator, an advisory board member, and helping out there. And I really don't think I do well there, because I just don't have the time and attention to do what it takes. So on my channel, I want to do more tacticas. I want to be more consistent with my battle reports. I want to travel to more tournaments. I want to post more of these philosophical ramblings. I really kind of enjoy doing them. I want to post more of my reason behind the decisions for the Ninth Age videos, because I think it's helpful. It's helpful to frame how people are thinking about why certain decisions are made and why changes are made. I want to paint more models and give them, do those free giveaways on my channel. I love doing that stuff. And then, of course, there are things that don't even make my list. Like when I talk to other people who are really serious tournament players, I mean, they're studying the rule book. They're studying other army books so they don't get surprised and they know what to expect. They study the current meta online and what are some really difficult lists you might come up against so you can be prepared for it. They play lots and lots of games, practice games on Ultimate Battles, Universal Battles, to prepare for a tournament. Those things don't even make my radar. I am tapped out. Absolutely. Not tapped out, I'm capped out. So there's family, there's work, there's fitness, and there's my play. And I like it. I mean, those four broad areas kind of define and consume my waking hours. And I don't have a lot of free time outside of that. I mean, outside of, sitting down at night for an hour and a half and hanging out with my wife watching TV. But even that's kind of planned. Like, that's our time together. So the problem with all this is probably apparent. And that is, I just don't seem capable of just casually doing something. And I often get overcommitted, and then it causes me a lot of stress because I feel like I'm not doing anything well. And of course, I have unreasonably high expectations for anything I do. So to my original question, why do I do what I do with a hobby? Well, for one, I love the creative outlet. When I first started this hobby, I just love the strategy. I still love the strategy game. And I love having a large community of people to be able to play strategy games with. Because other than that, playing Monopoly or Risk or Axis and Allies just gets boring after a while. And this game has enough variety that I don't find it boring. But when I started it, I didn't appreciate that it would become the creative outlet for me that it has. And I just love it. I love painting. I like doing the modeling of it. I don't like assembling 100 rank and file models, but I like the creative modeling and I like the painting. It's just it soothes my soul when I do it. I love the community. I love having a local gaming club that there's enough people there that I can play a variety of people on a variety of lists. I love the regional tournament scene. I like that I go to Ohio because I used to live there and go to a tournament and know a lot of people. I love the friends that I've made all over the world because of it, because of my channel, because of living different places and having an entry point into a circle of friends through the hobby. And then, of course, the Ninth Age, there are people that I interact with on the forums that I never would have known and that I just have become friends with just on the forums. And I love all that stuff, and that's why I do it. And it's funny, a few weeks ago I went to a one-day tournament. I rarely go to one-day tournaments. It's just tough. Anyway. But I showed up, and there's a couple guys there that are I just hadn't seen, and it seemed like forever. It seemed like a long time. They just probably just missed a couple tournaments. And walking in and just seeing them, I was like, I almost got teary-eyed, emotional about it. It was just so nice. Like, hey man, it is really good seeing you again. I just, um, yeah. Increasingly, as I get older and older, I appreciate those relationships. So I'm looking, when I think about why I do it and what I'm hoping for here, I guess I want enough people playing this game, Ninth Age, that there's a strong nationwide, maybe even worldwide chain of tournaments. I want what we had with the U.S. Masters several years ago. There was just a little few-year period where we had tournaments all over the country feeding into regional selection processes that fed into a national scene, and there were just conversations going on. I met people all around the country. I felt like there was synergy there, just a lot of excitement, and I love that. And I feel like we have that with Ninth Age. I feel it's not as big as it was, but it's big enough. I love that nationwide interaction. And it's funny because I don't care that people play other games. Like, I don't feel any competition from it. Like, people have always played X-Wing and Malifaux, before even Warhammer Fantasies disbanded. Now people play Ninth Age. Some people play Age of Sigmar. Some play Kings of War, and I don't care. It doesn't affect me. I think there are plenty of people to go around. I just want a healthy community so that I can go to tournaments in the game that I play. It's funny, what I want with this channel, my original vision for my channel was that I eventually wanted to have a library of battle reports with enough of them so that every army was represented, that people wanted to learn about a certain army. They could watch just a bunch of battle reports to see how I played them, how other people that I played against played them, and it would be a real learning resource for people. And I have that, and the problem, of course, is that a lot of times once rules change, nobody wants to watch the old battle reports because it's just kind of obsolete. They're just kind of funny. So I've built a library, and I'm not sure how valuable the library is. I've continued doing battle reports because I felt that was really my real original contribution to our hobby. I mean, people had done battle reports, even in my style. I've always given credit to the guy that I learned this style of battle reports. But I think my real contribution to the hobby was putting out a style of report that people have grown to like. And I think there's a lot of people through the years that have watched my channel, and a lot of them probably, have moved on. They've seen enough of Once Bitten, they got it, and now either they don't watch or they watch somebody else because their style is different enough from mine. But most battle reporters, I want to say the derivatives of my channel. And what I mean by that is they probably saw my channel and that influenced how they do theirs. Even if they do it differently, they do it differently purposefully. I think there are very few battle reporters out there that never saw my channel and saw my videos before doing their own. So I'm not trying to sound grandiose in saying that. I'm saying legitimately I've been doing this for a long time, and I think in a lot of ways I've influenced a generation or two of battle reporters, which is really cool. The downside of it, and I'm not feeling sorry for myself here, I'm thinking out loud with you. I fear that I'm growing passé. Right? I mean, it's like, yeah, we know how Once Bitten does his battle reports. He's done 500 plus of them. I was watching Vince Venturella's video that he put up. If you don't follow his channel, do yourself a favor and go follow. It's just awesome. But he did every year. He did for the last several years, or last couple anyway. He does this year-end awards thing, and there are different categories, and so people need to comment on that video nominating people, and then he'll do another video, and then somehow, some way there you vote. And so, the one category is Best Battle Reporter, and I've won it the last the 2 years he's done it. But I noticed it just hit me like a sledgehammer when I finally went to see his video, and it'd been, I think, 5 days since he posted it. Nobody mentioned me nobody nominated me for Best Battle Reporter for the first 5 days. Then finally, like, one person did. And I was like, wow. Like, either his channel is pulling people that don't really watch Ninth Age stuff, or I'm growing irrelevant. And that what struck me was how hard that hit me. And I think it's because I feel like if I'm going to do something, I have to do it really well. And if I have gotten to the point where I'm not doing this really well, I probably need to just stop doing it. I'm not threatening anything. I'm not saying that. I'm thinking out loud here. And that's not even to mention, other possible, like nobody was considering me for, best ninth age content, or because I did a lot of like behind the scenes videos or promoting new model companies for the ninth age, the reasons behind the decision videos, stuff like that. Nobody said most thought-provoking content for my philosophical ramblings videos, and maybe it's because I've only done a few of them or whatever, I don't know. But I'm like, oh my gosh, am I like the Rolling Stones, where they're past their prime but they're still playing to ever decreasing crowds of people? God, I don't want to be the Rolling Stones. So so I'm thinking to myself, what do I do? I mean, I can't just walk away from it. I'm trying to just upload content as I want to. Like, I still have a couple of tournament games I need to create the battle reports for. I just don't feel like creating the battle reports. I'll do it soon. I just don't feel like doing it right now. But then the flip side of that is my inconsistency pushing people away from the channel, because I'm not running a channel the way it really should be run. And it's difficult for me to just do something casually. I'm obviously struggling with this. So, I don't know. That's ramblings. That's time and attention, and overcommitting, Owen Spitton overcommitting himself. So, to what things do I dedicate my time and attention, and to what extent, am I able to draw parameters around what this channel and what my hobby activity is and what it isn't, what it can and can't be. So, in the immediate concerns, tonight my kids are home from college. I'll go down and hang out with them. Tomorrow we're running a 5K race together, and I know I can't beat my son, but my goal is to beat my youngest daughter, because she's training every day with track, and it's tough. So, yeah. As for the channel, yeah, I've got a couple battle reports that I'll put together over the next few days and get them up there and finish the last tournament. Anyway, that's it for these philosophical ramblings. Hope it was somewhat enjoyable.